Well, hello there, my bookish besties. Welcome back to the channel. It's me, Ashley. I'm so excited to dive into this topic. Today, we are going to talk about 10 Hunger Games what-ifs. What's a what-if, you ask? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. A what-if, think about Marvel. If you've seen the Marvel TV show what-ifs, it can also be classified as essentially like a butterfly effect. So what if this one thing was different? How would it change the entire narrative? We're going to explore 10 different possible what-ifs in the Hunger Game universe that would completely change the story. And I'd love to know in the comments as we go through, do you agree with my observations? Do you have any particular what-ifs that pop into your mind that would completely change the Hunger Games world as we know it? All right, guys, strap in, get your comfy blankets, grab your favorite little bevy of choice, and we're going to dive on in. All right, y'all, this is going to contain spoilers for Hunger Games, all of the trilogy. So Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and potentially Sunrise on the Reaping. So if you haven't finished or caught up, then please, by all means, save this video, come back next time. We are going to deep dive, we're going to talk, we're going to yap. We are also going to go in book release order. So in the order I just stated, that's where we're going to release to. So if you haven't finished Sunrise yet, by all means, get to Ballad and then pause it and come back. We'll be here waiting for you. So starting out strong with our OG Hunger Games one. So let's discuss what if Gale had volunteered for Peeta. So I have to laugh a little bit because gross. But I can see a different couple of scenarios happening if Gale would have stepped in and volunteered for Peeta in his place. So this is assuming either Gale volunteered over Peeta's name or Gale's name was originally reaped. How would that work? And in this scenario, Katniss has already volunteered for Panem. In this scenario, because the girl gets chosen first, the guy gets chosen second. So if that were the case, let's say Peeta's name is reaped, Gale volunteers, I don't think that Katniss would really ever forgive him. Gale was supposed to be there in District 12 to take care of her family. That feels like the unspoken bond between the both of them because they both take care of each other's family. That's what they do. That's how they survived, is they take care of one another. If Gale had thrown all of that away just to be with Katniss in the arena, she would not have forgiven him. Now, if he was reaped, that's a different conversation because the odds truly just are not in their favor. Now, I think we would not get that same star-crossed lovers storyline. Now, would we get intimate moments between Gale and Katniss as Gale was kind of like, oh shoot, this is the girl I love, and here we are, both being reaped at the same time. This is my now or never moment, and lay it on the line? Sure, I think that could definitely happen. However, Gale is not as charismatic as Peeta. Gale does not know how to swing a crowd. Sure, he's got good bone structure and sure, a nice face, according to Effie Trinket. I don't think he has the power to sway a crowd like the one and the only Peeta Mellark. Now, if they had done a more star-crossed storyline, let's say they did dive headfirst into it and say that, at least in the games themselves, it became more intimate, even if it wasn't broadcasted for all of Panem, it might have been a little bit more, I hate to say real on Katniss' side, but real on Katniss' side, because that is her best friend. They already have this predetermined relationship. She knows him. It's not 100% fake, and it's also not like he's a stranger. Though I don't think that Gale would want to make their relationship public. I don't think he'd want to go that strategy. I think he'd go on with the strategy of protecting Katniss. I think he'd go on the strategy of, we're going to use our survival skills to get out of here. I don't know if that would have gotten them sponsors or not. I don't know if people would have liked them or not. I'm going to gravitate towards no, because we know how Gale feels about the Capitol, and I think that presence would just ooze in every interview and every chance he got to be in public. I don't think he'd really lean into playing up any kind of character. I think he would just be that own form of silent rebellion where he just doesn't, and he just focuses honing in on survival in maybe ways that he can screw up the Capitol while he's doing so. Really pulling in that rascal angle. Hint, hint. In the games, they would definitely go in and obviously ally up. They would work together in order to survive. I think at the end of the day, though, Gale would sacrifice himself to protect Katniss, or, foreshadowing to what actually happens, he tries and he's just not able to, and Katniss dies. Maybe he's the victor, we don't know, but between Gale and Cato at the end, I don't know whose money I have on, if I'm being honest. But Gale is very, very rebellious in his own way. He has lots of negative thoughts inside the Capitol. I don't know if they'd let him get that far. I don't know if sponsors would like him enough. Overall, I just don't see it being as successful. There's no way that the game makers would do that change of two people from the same, or two tributes from the same district could win. That would not even be in the cards, because I don't think they'd play the star-crossed levered angle. I think they would play just allies, honestly, and just see a very close ally relationship and very close survival skills. But it wouldn't be as successful. I don't think the revolution would get any kind of spark or fire from them going in together. I think it would be a pretty degular games from the outside perspective. What if Prim wasn't reaped? This one is kind of degular. It would just be a quote-unquote normal year. Katniss and Peeta would still be strangers. Katniss wouldn't volunteer for her sister. In this idea, Peeta is still reaped. Peeta doesn't get to have his long, full goodbye. Katniss doesn't really ever know that he has the feelings for her. And that rebellion would still be put on hold, still waiting for the right timing and that lucky person to really ignite the spark that's been set. And essentially, we just get into another year of torture. The cycle would continue, and maybe the Quarter Quell 75th year is the year the fire sets instead. And, who would be reaped instead of Prim? It could be a number of options, but if we're going for girls that we know, potentially Madge. And that could be a callback to Maisie when she was reaped. And then could the Mockingjay pin make a reappearance as Madge wears it into the games? Great questions. What if Katniss didn't volunteer? And now I understand this is all of Katniss's true character. Like, she is going to volunteer. That is who she is. Like, that is one of her core fundamentals of her as a person, is she's going to step up for the people that she loves. She's going to take care of those who are innocent, who can't care for themselves. We're going to write that out for a second and say that Prim goes, but Katniss has responsibility to take care of her family and Gale's family. She doesn't for whatever reason. Now it is Prim and Peeta in the arena. What happens? First and foremost, Prim's not going to make it. I'm so sorry. She's 12. She has no survival skills. Katniss has babied her entire life for a reason. She didn't want Prim to go through the troubles and hardships that she had to go through. She wanted to make sure that Prim was as safe as she could be, as safe as possible in this world. So Prim wouldn't know how to do anything. She would just be a pig waiting for slaughter, essentially, in an awful graphic terminology. But Peeta, I think Peeta, still being charismatic, would see, this is my crush's little sister. I have to do everything to ensure that she's going to be okay, or at least has not a terrible death. So there'd be a different spin angle, because Peeta is still going to play the public up. That's what he's good at. He's really great at steering the conversation and being that the entertainment. He knows how to put on a show. So what does he do instead? Caesar asks, is there a girl back in 12? Yes, her little sister came here with me. And either way, it's still a bad look, because if Peeta wins and goes home, that means he couldn't protect the little sister, the one thing that she loves. Or if little sister gets to go home, Peeta doesn't. So it's still like a lose-lose, can still get lots of sympathy for the Capitol as he fulfills this big brother Papa Bear role, which could still work. In the arena, they 100% would have an alliance. Peeta would do everything in his power to take care of little Prim. Would that work out? Not necessarily. I think Peeta would end up sacrificing himself in order to save her, and then I don't think she'd last very much longer, because once again, she has no true survival skills. Katniss made sure of that by taking up all of the hardship for them. There would be no two victors rule, because there was no star-crossed lovers to begin with. It was just Papa Bear protecting Baby Bear. And I don't think that either of them would really get far enough to initiate that rule, because it came in the later part of the games. And again, I think Peeta would sacrifice himself as his one last act of true love for Katniss. So in that scenario, this kind of leads into my next what if. What if Cato won the 74th Hunger Games? He was about to. He was third place. He had it. If Peeta had bled out, if Katniss had died, either way, and Cato won, what would have happened? And essentially nothing. another career would have won, another year of torture, another year of the cycle, another year of that revolution put on pause, another year of waiting for that right time. Because right now, the districts are just like a bomb waiting to go off, and they just waited for like that one person that could do it, which kind of leads to all of these what ifs, is that if it wasn't them too at the right time, then nothing would have happened. But we do get an interesting moment of Cato in the games where he has this revelation of sorts where he's like, is this all I'm made for? Like, it was supposed to be different. Like, I'm a piece in their games, essentially. And I wonder if he would have still had that revolution, or if he would have had that revelation in the games, and if he would have actually been like a decent victor, or if he would have like turned all capital sweet boy. I kind of figure capital sweet boy. I also think he might have had the same fate as Finnick, which is really, really sad. I don't really wish that for Cato. I don't wish that for anybody. What if Snow didn't put victors back in the arena for the 75th games, the Quarter Quell? I think we can all kind of agree that was Snow's biggest mistake in an idea to really kind of terminate this enemy that he's created. He created the victors and the idea of the victors, and now that they're reaping the benefits of that, he's realized he has no control over them, puts them back in the arena, and that just kind of causes downfall everywhere, not just in the districts, but also in the capital, who's come to love these victors. So what if there was a completely different route for those games? And there's so many ideas, because the concept is that the people who created the games wrote like 100 different versions of different Quarter Quells, and you pick one at random. So it could be anything from, we already did double the victors, we did people voting for the victors, we could play more with age, so, you know, expand the victor pool of age. You could limit the victor pool of age, so it's only 12 to 13-year-olds. Like, there's different things that you can do. And especially like with the whole time element of the arena, time could have been on their side, where it's like, okay, now we're going to reap 12 to 24. You know, there's different things they could do. He chose victors. So what if he didn't? So the capital would throw Katniss and Peeta a very extravagant wedding and broadcast it for all of Panem to see, and really, really soaking in that content. And I think that could have worked if they just kept the content being on Katniss and Peeta's wedding and just continued flooding with that. I don't know, distraction, entertainment, gossip, news is the best way to cover up what's actually happening in the world. Just saying. And thus, Katniss and Peeta would force to be mentors for the tributes in 75th games. I think it would have been a really interesting perspective to see Katniss go through what it's like being a mentor, because we haven't had that perspective yet. And we see the toll that it's taken on Haymitch throughout the books, but we also now know the other tolls that's taken on Haymitch throughout the books. And we know that Katniss is like, one of her big character traits, and some could argue it's a character flaw, is this love to save and help helpless things. We see that in her protection of Prim her entire life. We see that in her protection and allyship of Rue. We see that in her wanting Mags for an ally. Like, she just gravitates towards these helpless beings, and she wants to be there, and she steps in as a mom, essentially, just to make sure like they're okay, because she understands that like they can't do it, and she wants to pick it up. So imagine if she does that for tribute who can't do it. Imagine Katniss like trying to step up but not being able to do anything, and people don't like her, so she's not going to be good at getting sponsors. Peeta's going to be the one that goes and gets the sponsors. Like, that would just be a really interesting dynamic to play with, and seeing Katniss's inner monologue, which we know is like unhinged and kind of crazy in these books, going through that process. And further, imagine if we're going through the reapings and then Prim is reaped in the Quarter Quell. Now Katniss can't volunteer for her. She has to mentor her little sister in the Quarter Quell. If I was to know, that'd be a much worse punishment, I think. To each their own. I don't know if I would want to read that as a consumer of these books. I don't think I really want to explore that narrative, because that would break my heart too much. But it would be an interesting story to tie into the rebellion, especially if we're still going to keep the whole Quarter Quell, the arena breaks, and the rebels come out, and Katniss is able to save her sister from the arena. Like, that's something we could have dove into, as long as Prim survived that. But I mean, we all know her fate at the end. So what if Katniss and Haymitch were the victors reaped to go back into the arena in the Quarter Quell? As we know, Haymitch's name was pulled out first, Haymitch Abernathy and Katniss, so they were the victors originally slotted to go back into the arena. Peeta volunteers for Haymitch to go back in with Katniss, but Katniss and Haymitch had a deal. The deal was, if Peeta's name was drawn, Haymitch would volunteer. What would have happened if that was the case? Well, first off, Haymitch would have forced Katniss to play allies, and after Sunrise and Context, we know that Haymitch has a history with these people. We always knew because all victors know each other, but Haymitch has a history with these people. He would have forced Katniss's hand to play those allies and be part of that alliance and would not have any ifs, ands, or buts. Then we have Peeta as the mentor. One, I think he'd be great getting sponsors. People love him. I think he'd be able to do well with sponsors. But two, he would only be focused on saving Katniss. His entire focus would be on saving Katniss. I still don't know if he would be part of the rebel plan. I think they would still try to keep him in the dark, which would be hard because he's on the outside of the arena trying to coordinate what's going on. I don't know, but also I feel like Peeta can keep a secret. And if the entire rebel plan is to keep Katniss alive, I think he'd be on board with keeping Katniss alive. Or maybe they just mutually agree to keep Katniss alive and have Peeta do whatever it takes to keep her alive throughout the initiation of the plan, and then Peeta's in the dark when it happens, and then Plutarch just says, Peeta, come with me, and maybe he doesn't go to the Capitol. Maybe that's a good one. Haymitch would definitely struggle more in the arena, though. We saw a glimpse of that in Catching Fire during training, because when they realized, oh shoot, we're going back in, Peeta's like, okay, mindsets, we're careers. We're going to train our bodies, we're going to get in shape because we know it's going to be 2 of the 3 of us. Haymitch was definitely going through a lot when he was training, and definitely age and his vices were wearing and tearing on his body. Now imagine him going through all the tribute training and all of the actual time in the arena when his body is going through detox and withdrawals. He would not fare well. And would he even survive and last the 3 or so days that they're in the arena before they're rescued? I don't know. And then there's some other questions that I have, like, can he swim? After Sunrise, I still don't know the answer to this. He's been outside of District 12, but they never really talk about going to the lake. They talk about going to the woods and the meadow. I would hope that he knows how to swim, and maybe Lenore Dove taught him, but can he swim? There's the floating device on their suits, so not a necessity, but would definitely help. His fighting style, he's good with the knife. That's really about it. We don't really see a lot of his fighting style in Sunrise. It's logic, it's brain, it's smarts is what he's good at. He can throw a spear and use a spear, but nothing like Finnick and his trident, which, they would obviously team up because that was the whole thing. Would love to see how they know each other, though. That's another side ADHD thought. And I'm just thinking about the different trials of the arena they went through, and then you got the Jabberjays. There's no one really left that Haymitch loves, but imagine if Snow was able to get a recording of Lenore Dove's voice to use for Jabberjays and torment Haymitch with that. Oh, that'd be traumatizing. Or maybe going back in the records and getting Maisley Donner's voice or Ambert's voice and using that for the Jabberjays. Oh my god, that would not be okay. I'm gonna make myself cry right now thinking about that. It's too soon. But I think that Haymitch would end up using his brains, but I just don't know if he'd be able to hold himself in the arena with the other victors. He'd have Katniss to protect him. I don't know. I go back and forth. Let me know what you guys think. Would Haymitch have survived the 3 days until the rebels were rescued? Or do you think he would have met an untimely end, kind of like Wirus or Mags? What if Peeta was saved from the Quell instead of Katniss? Coin has come out and said that she would have rather saved Peeta than Katniss because why? Peeta is easier to control. And he's a better public speaker. He's easier to get people to like him and to listen to him. He's just more natural in that front-facing camera position. But that's not what the people respond to. The people responded to Katniss. And the question is, would Peeta agree? Would Peeta agree to be her puppet in District 13? And I think he wouldn't unless, similar to Katniss, the agreement is we're going to save them. We're going to save the victors. More specifically, Peeta would only be the voice if they are going to save Katniss. I don't know if he would do anything else until Katniss is saved or until, steps are taken to make that happen and make that a thing. Because I think I know Peeta's more self-aware of his love for Katniss, so he's going to put that more at the forefront. So everything that he does is going to be strategic in order to get Katniss back. But also, is Peeta going to be as convincing as Katniss to the people, to the districts? And I'm going to straight up and I'm going to say no. We love Peeta. I love Peeta. The Capitol loves Peeta, but I think people in the districts can sometimes see through him. Now, they might relate to him for love and they might join the battle to fight Katniss, and maybe that's the strategic angle that they go off of. is Peeta goes, the Capitol has Katniss, we have to go bombard the Capitol to get the girl on fire back. And maybe that's the messaging and the mindset they use to rally the districts to go save Katniss. But that way, Katniss is still that center of attention. She is still the Mockingjay. She's still the symbol of the revolution. She's no longer leading the armies, but she's the reason why the armies are rallying up. Katniss, on the other hand, in the Capitol, would have gotten tenfold of the torture and the torment that Peeta went through. Potentially a public execution where Snow would really show the districts they don't have power and publicly showcase that to enforce his power and control in his hand. But that also could backfire extremely, and he can't use her the same way that he used Peeta. There's really no hijacking her to try to take down Peeta. That's not how that works the same way. There's different ways that he could hijack her. He could hijack her to a tool of the Capitol and now make her rally the Capitol together and push down the districts. He could do that. I fully believe he has that power after we've seen the body double switching and the hijacking that they've done. So that's an option that I could see them going down if he doesn't choose to publicly her on camera to make matters worse. I think he'd want to keep her as a tool in his belt and find a way to finally control her, because we know that's Snow's biggest thing. And also the backstory of Lucy Gray. He couldn't control Lucy Gray. Lucy Gray was never his property. Finally, he'd have a Covey girl from the Seaman District 12 that he can control. He tells her what to say, he tells her what to do, and she listens. She is his property. I think he would take full advantage of that with Katniss if she was in his hands. All right, moving on to the prequels. What if Snow had run away with Lucy Gray? Now, I don't know if this ever happened because Snow is crazy. We've read the books with the inner monologues, and it's insane. The movie shows almost a descent into the madness, but those who've read the books know that he was always insane and unhinged. So I don't know if he actually, there's a reason he didn't make it that far, but what if they did? We're just playing the game of what if love was the key and he ran away with Lucy Gray? I think he might have actually ended her. I think she might have actually would have met her end by him. But I guess the bigger question is, if he never returned, who would take his place and what would Panem look like? I don't really know if there was I'm going to use the word stronger here, a stronger leader with a tighter grip on the nation than him, because he was smart, he was strategic, he played those chess pieces to get him where he is. And his classmates just weren't on that same level. That's why he won and was able to do what he did, is because he was playing chess while they were all playing checkers. Now, we know that the current president is Raven still. His son died in the drama of those 10th games and the aftermath of the bombings. So who would take his place? Because it was president, so elected is kind of the vibes I get from citizens of the Capitol, I would assume, based on that title. It's not passed down inheritance. Mm-hmm. It's not passed down by inheritance. There's how you got to that level of power. And with the people and classmates that we met, I just don't know who would be that. And I honestly think that it might be the Heavensbees because of their wealth, if I'm being honest, because of their wealth and their power. And we got a little bit more insight in Sunrise on the Reaping with Plutarch and his family name and his family house. And they've always had money. They had money in the dark days and they had money now, and it's just been passed by. And I can see them being the wealthy rulers coming in, but I don't see the games getting extreme with anyone else behind the realm. I think if it wasn't Snow, I don't think the games would have gotten to 75. They might have ended at 10. They might have ended at 15. Because what happened with 10 is yes, it opened these crazy doors of sponsorships and actual care for tributes and XYZ, but it also really showcased the incompetency of the Capitol, and there were so many Capitol kids that met their demise in those games. It was, I think the number total was 6 or something. Maybe that was tributes. But it was a crazy number of Capitol kids that in those games too. And I wonder if the Capitol would have more rioted about that, if there was a less leader. Obviously, Snow didn't come to power until a couple years later. We see him in 10 Hunger Games, year 10, I don't know actually year it is, but the 10th games, coming back and going to university, and then 40 years later, he's the president. So what happened in those 40 years, and it's still loud and proud by the 50th Quarter Quell, but would we have gotten to 50 with a different president, or would we have gotten farther? Was Snow's, his biggest downfall is his need for control and, squeezing too hard when he should have maybe let go, and sometimes letting go, you can have more control. But he didn't want to do that. He squeezed those districts till there was nothing left to give. So if there was a leader that was able to let go a little bit, just a little bit, maybe give them some food, I don't know, just a little bit, would they have had a better grasp on the situation and have the games prolonged longer? I mean, look at Coin. Coin was still like, we're pro games here because we want to make sure like that thirst for blood is quenched. Great questions. Let me know. Would a different ruler have stopped the games earlier or prolonged them if Snow wasn't in the picture? Because for some reason he got his happy ever after with Lucy Gray. And then another fun question, what if Highbottom never got drunk? What if him and Snow Daddy didn't ever just sit and get drunk and brainstorm the games? Obvious answer, we'd have no Hunger Games. But would something worse replace it? Would anything replace it? Or would they have dropped the subject entirely and Panem would have got on? Is there anything as bad as the Hunger Games that could have replaced it? I don't really want to go down that trek because that's a really disturbing mindset. But it all kind of comes down to that butterfly effect of Highbottom getting drunk that one night. So what if he didn't? All right, we're moving on into Sunrise on the Reaping. I've talked a little bit about Sunrise already, but this is like full on like potential spoilers. So proceed with caution, my friends. So what if Haymitch had stayed back? I'm specifically talking about the reaping scene when everything went haywire. Woodbine ran. I guess you could also say if Woodbine didn't run and Woodbine was reaped. But either way, Haymitch wasn't reaped. Obviously, we wouldn't get the story we get today. It would look a lot different. But if the accident still happened and Lenore had stepped up to protect the mom, then obviously Lenore was going to get punished. Haymitch stepped up to prevent that. If he didn't step up, Lenore would have been punished. Either way, it would have not ended well for Lenore Dove. Even if she didn't step up and Woodbine had gone to the podium and everything went as normal and he was in the games as normal, I still think that Haymitch and Lenore Dove were never going to live a long, happy life together. I think they were always doomed from the start. A tragic, star-crossed romance. And I say that purely based on Lenore Dove's name poem, The Raven. I mean, we all read The Raven when we were in middle school, or at least I did, and I'm Alabama curriculum, so I'm hoping other states and other countries studied that Edgar Allan poem. I was personally an Annabelle Lee fan myself, but The Raven was pretty good. And the whole concept of The Raven is this man feeling guilt over his lost love, to the point that he's hearing knock, knock, knocks and rasping at his chamber door, thinking that it's his lost love, Lenore. But it's not. It is a raven that says nevermore, nevermore, because she is never coming back. That's not good juju for this relationship. That's not good juju for a name, mind you. And we find out through the narrative that Lenore Dove is a little bit of a rascal herself. She lights that fire underneath the reaping stage one year. She had the spray paint on the wall and the evidence from the orange spray paint and her orange hands and fingertips. Like, she's a little bit of a rebel, a little bit of a rascal. And I think she would have gotten her comeuppance one way or another. I think Hanging Tree, the song, would have been a very real reality for her, which is really sad. But I think it's true, whether it happened when she stepped up and helped out Woodbine Chance's mom at the reaping, or another incident that she does, because we know that she's not done. She's just getting started. Either way, not a good ending. I don't think that ever meant to live happily ever after. At least Haymitch would still have his mom and he would still have Sid. That's a plus that he wouldn't have had. He would get to be Uncle Haymitch to Katniss. He would never say goodbye to Burdock and Astrid. He would actually get to be Uncle Haymitch. He wouldn't be the drunk at the Hob. Wait, that's so... Oh my god. That's really sad. Okay, moving on. Whew. All right, my very final what if, and I've got a lot of altercations on this one, a lot of possibilities and butterfly effects. What if Lenore Dove was reaped? So there's a couple things we know about reapings. One, we've seen in pretty much every book that we've seen evidence that reapings are and can be rigged. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the mayor rigged it so Lucy Gray would be in Catching Fire. Gale comes forward and says that it was rigged, or at least unfair. I should say. And then in Sunrise, obviously they just kind of threw Haymitch up there and said, now you're the tribute because you messed up, good sir. Boom, there you go. So what if in this parallel universe, instead of Maisie or Luella, it was Lenore Dove's name who is called in this Quarter Quell? Knowing the relation to the Covey, I think Snow would be a little hesitant on getting another Covey member reap for the press, and we see how well that went last time. But with all of the rebel activity that Lenore Dove is currently doing and has done her entire life, I wouldn't put it past the Capitol for purposely reaping her name to get rid of her, essentially. So with her being reaped, let's walk through a couple different scenarios. So the first scenario is she's reaped without Haymitch, because if she was reaped, Haymitch wouldn't have to step out of line, his name wouldn't have been called, she's in the arena alone. Would she then step into Haymitch's shoes and become that spark that later ignites the rebellion? Would she have teamed up with Ampert and later with Beetee in order to hatch the plan to break the arena? She would have the goal, I'll give her that, she'll have it. Is she as smart as Haymitch? She's a lot more confident and out there with her rebellionness against the Capitol than Haymitch is. It kind of sneaks up on Haymitch when it's at very much the forefront of her mind, and I think she would be very outspoken. Now, I don't know if this would be a plus or a minus when it comes to the actual rebellion side. I think she could do it, but I don't know if Snow would let her get far enough. Because she's a member of the Covey, I think he would spot it real close and real soon. He'd recognize the name, he'd recognize District 12. Heck, he might even recognize her features and the way she carries herself, because we all know he was obsessed with that Lucy Gray. I also think Snow saw a little bit of himself in Haymitch, because he looked at Haymitch and saw a guy who was in love with a girl from District 12 in the Seam, and a Covey, hopelessly in love with this girl that has so many secrets, who is a wildflower bird, and he probably felt a little bit of pity on Haymitch, which is probably why Haymitch didn't meet a lot of bad conclusions before the games even started, or heck, even in the games themselves. He might have kept giving Haymitch an out, knowing that Haymitch is smarter than this, to find a better alternative for himself. I mean, Snow gives Haymitch chances to repent. We see in the arena with the whole milk thing where he gives him the milk in the arena, and it's kind of his last choice of like, all right, this, you can drink this and you can die a peaceful death, or you can live and I'll fulfill my promise to kill everyone you love. I don't think Haymitch saw really that warning, but I clocked it in the conversation when Snow was like, when you die in the arena, everyone you love stays safe, so you're fine. But with Lenore Dove, I think all Snow would see would be Lucy Gray. I don't know if she would make it even into the arena. He could have pulled the whole body double switcheroo like he did with Luella and Lulu, so that he wouldn't even risk putting another member of the Covey in the arena for the fear of what they would do. Now, what if her and Haymitch went into the arena together? Whether Haymitch was ripped, was reaped, or he volunteered for one of the guys. Well, hello, star-crossed lovers of District 12, just 24 years early. I don't think it would have ended the same way that Katniss and Peeta's would have ended, but I think it would have a better argument of, okay, double the tributes to victors. It's the same percentage-wise of victors. It wouldn't be as detrimental, which I guess then wouldn't be the whole reason they doubled the tributes to begin with. But it's a better argument, I would say. And it's good TV, especially with like their love is real. That would have been a real love story we would have seen on TV. It wouldn't have been like as concocted as Peeta and Katniss's were, because Peeta was playing that crowd. But I don't know if Haymitch and Lenore Dove would be as good at it. I don't think Lenore Dove would want to be public about it. I think she'd want to try to rebel against the Capitol in another way that but didn't put her private life on screen. I think Haymitch would like casually mention it. I don't think he'd go these grand gestures of love in public. That's the kicker right there, is on TV for the Capitol, for the world to see. I don't think he would exploit that. That would be a private love for him. But I think we'd see it come to life in the arena. I think they'd protect each other. Obviously, they'd be allies, obviously. And I think they might get into some rebellious activity together in the arena. Now imagine Beetee's plan with 2 rebellious spirits and little Ampert. I think in the end, though, Haymitch would sacrifice himself to save Lenore Dove, and I think that Snow would have some very, very strategic Capitol mutts specific for her demise. He would not let another Covey, win the Hunger Games after Lucy Gray. And I'm thinking similar to like those pink birds that got Maisley. I think he would take some kind of songbird mutt, maybe even a mockingjay or a jabberjay or mockingbird or some kind of songbird to go through with that deed for the sheer irony of having a songbird take out a songbird. Now, the final what if in this scenario, I will leave you guys on. What if Snow didn't kill Maisley with the gumdrops? Hear me out. We all know that Snow's weapon of choice is poison. Perfect tool for a snake, right? And it was set up perfectly with Lenore Dove loving gumdrops, and even the slight notice where at the end of the ceremony crowning Haymitch as the victor, Snow had a red rose, not a white rose. That was 100% very, very subtle foreshadowing of what's to come. So instead of her eating the gumdrops and passing away in Haymitch's arms, what if Snow waited a year and reaped her in the Hunger Games the following year? So imagine this. Haymitch and Lenore Dove get a full year together of, I guess not a full year, 11 and a half months together, thinking that they survived. They made it out. They're here. Maybe Lenore is trying to like push the boundaries and Haymitch is like, please don't. I've been through so much. I would still say that his mom, Sid, probably didn't make it. And that's probably why he's clinging so dearly to Lenore Dove, being like, please, like, you're all I have left. Don't do this rebellious stuff. Let's just make Snow happy or else he's going to get you too. We go a full year. It's now Haymitch's 17th birthday. Lenore Dove's name is reaped. Now Haymitch has to mentor Lenore Dove. It's that glimpse of hope, that glimpse of happiness that Snow then takes away. He still gets what he wants. He just plays more of a long game than getting it automatically. Now, granted, a lot can happen in that year. They could run away. More rebellious things could have happened, that kind of stuff. But I think in order for like the most pain and suffering, that would have been a way to go. Because now, again, Haymitch has to mentor his love. And again, there's no way that Snow is going to let a girl from the Covey District 12 win the Hunger Games again. He's going to set mutts against her, replace with body double, anything that we just talked about earlier, I think he would still do in order to prevent that. And it would just be like his final nail in the coffin for Haymitch of like, you thought you got out. No, you didn't. You're still mine. And that psychological torture of giving him like that glimpse of happiness before it takes it all away. I'm really sorry about that. That was diabolical. That was so mean of me. All right, y'all, those are my 10 Hunger Games universe what ifs, butterfly effects that would change everything that we know about the games and the books and the universe and these characters. I have a lot of more deep thoughts and questions, but I'd love to hear from you. Do you agree on my what ifs and what would have happened based on the characters, what we know about this universe? Do you have any more ideas of what if this one thing changed and how the entire narrative of the story would flow and go? I'd love to hear from you guys. I have so much more fun, engaging content for y'all. So stay tuned, stick around, and like, comment, subscribe. I've gotten so many new friends here and I love seeing everyone's new faces. So say hi in the comments, introduce yourself, and we'll talk, we'll gab, we'll yap. And in the meantime, I have no more of this left. I chugged it. Wow. Happy reading.